That
Damon
would
looks like
be-
such a fucking dork in this first scene. Sorry, I'm rewatching
Fucking
this.
Draco Malfoy.
Now, at first I thought this was Caraxes and Cyrax flying around.
I think
Is it
Sea Smoke
Sea Smoke.
and Mellies.
One of them
I
was
think
definitely
it's
red, right?
Mellies, isn't
Millie's the Red Queen.
The red, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Oh,
All right.
dragon's right.
Look, this is going to happen a lot. This is DragonCast, so I'll have to get better at it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vassals of Kingsgrave for the 5th episode of the HBO series House of the Dragon, entitled We Light the Way, I believe. My name is Adam, also known as drownedsnow on the Discord and the forums and all the various things. And today, I am joined by a crew of vassals, and we're going to introduce them one at a time here and get their thoughts on the episode. So let's start with Bing. Bing, what did you think?
Hey, Shoeshiner on the Once Upon a Time forums. This episode is awesome. I love it. 4.75. I mean, I could just give it a 5, honestly. It's, there's a little bit of action at the end. Obviously, it's a wedding episode, so somebody has to die. To be honest, it's pretty tame for general Thrones verse weddings, considering. It's a lot of fun stuff to dig into. Very juicy.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they probably were looking for a wedding episode, which don't have many opportunities. So we got the red wedding, purple wedding. This will probably be the green wedding, right? Might make sense.
I'm gonna run out of color soon.
Yeah, that's right. We got to keep mixing it up. All right, Casey, what did you think?
Hey, this is Casey, Blue-Eyed Queen on the internet. So I think this is like one of my favorite episodes so far, although I'm pretty honestly just happy with the show overall, so I might be, I'm overall just very happy with everything. But anyways, with the show today, I thought that everything was great. I really enjoyed the wedding. I really enjoyed the conversation. I never want to see what Sir Christian did to what's his face ever again, because that was absolutely disgusting. And yeah, we love a good wedding in the Thrones world.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie, what about you?
I will give it a 5 out of 5. The money is on the screen, you guys. My God, the show looks so good and is just so well put together every week. I really don't have any complaints about it. I thought the scene of Viserys in his throne room, or rather his bedroom, talking with Lionel Strong was profoundly sad. I mean, Damon coming in at the end just made me fucking laugh, because I was like, oh yeah, I guess he was at this wedding, question mark. I don't remember. We can go scene by scene, but I have no marks. I thought like it took an enormous amount of character complexity and shit to wrap up before we do the time skip, and did it really elegantly. I was impressed.
Yeah, I had some concerns if they would have been able to do that or not, and I think this episode kind of alleviated my concerns as well. Stephanie, what do you think?
4.5. Like Katie said, I think they got everything to a good place where they can do the time skip. Just like the sets, the costumes, it was great. Like going the route they did with Kristen Cole. I have a few nitpicks, but like no serious, like fundamental level complaints.
All right, and Michal, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't like to give anything a 5.5, but sorry. Also, I'm Inkasrain on the internet. I mean, this is very close. If it's not a 5.5, it's one of those episodes where it's like, I hate what happens. Like, you see your voice at the beginning, and I'm like, I want a show about you, please. And you know what's going to happen. And like, I hate what happens to her, and I hate what happens to, Joffrey and all the horrible, machinations that are devolving around everyone. It's really a miracle they survived to 10 years later. But I mean, it's just so well done. It's so sumptuous. Like the dancing and like the way the wedding, not the wedding, but I guess the the welcome feast is filmed, where it's so crowded and you can tell that it's hot and nobody really knows what's going on, and it's just like this, like every time Rhaenyra's in screen, there is someone that she has either fucked or is going to fuck in the future with her, either like dancing with her or to the side or something. It's so well framed. Probably definitely my least favorite Daemon episode. Like, this was the first time I was like, ugh, I really don't like you. But I mean, this show feels like a little bit of a miracle to me. It's like, it's incredible that we get something of this production quality that is also, I think, paying really close attention to the themes of, family and legacy and all that shit that George loves to bring out through his stories.
Yeah, I think they're manufacturing some Damon haters tonight for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And Juicio's in the house with us. What do you think? Talk to me, King. What'd you think?
Hey, Ben here, Jucio. I'm probably like a 4.5 to a 5. It's a really good episode. Honestly, I know that we're like supposed to feel like we've reached this like conclusion, but I just want more with like Emma Darcy and Millie Alcock and everybody here. Like more time with Lena, great actress. I really think this episode, I wasn't expecting a lot of the things that happened in it, but I think it definitely delivered. Especially with Viserys. Viserys, you're feeling the degradation now in full, and it's pretty nasty to see. I'll agree. I don't know who said it, but the scene with him and Lionel right after his collapse was really, really good. We got a mention of Orwell there as well in that, and I really like it. But yeah, as a whole, really enjoyed this episode. Really enjoyed the wrap up, but at the same time, I just want more with all these people. Oh, fuck Daemon.
Strong take, good words. Yeah, Viserys is gross. For sure. All right, and joining us, we have from Wolfcast, Hannah is here, and also she's going to be a guest dragon today, so maybe that makes her like the Song of Ice and Fire. I don't know. Tell me what you think.
Hey, it's Shadowbaby on the interwebs, Wing Shadow on the Discord. Due to scheduling conflicts, I've jumped ship for the night. So thank you guys for having me. I am actually going to give this an unprecedented 4.5. This is my favorite episode so far. I think they did a really amazing job throughout the wedding scene, that whole sequence of really building the tension without being completely on the nose about it. And I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen. So I always like that when I'm a little bit like, I think when the credits came on, I was like, what the fuck was my exact words? So I was really excited to finally start to feel like I'm enjoying this story. I'm deducting half a point for Matt Smith is just still really not doing it for me. I wish they brought the actor back that played Viserys II from the main series. I think he would have done a better job at the role. But I really loved Lady Rhea. She was serving me like Asha Greyjoy realness, and I'd love to see her back in one of the other like prequel series that they're trying to do. In just the short time she was on screen, I really connected with her, so that was fantastic casting. But yeah, all in all, I enjoyed it. I thought it was well paced, brilliantly shot. And I am looking forward to the next episode.
Awesome. And I think I will say, yeah, Lady Rhea, I think we mentioned this in the Discord, like she was giving off like heavy, like Mirror Read vibes kind of. And
Yeah, that
episode,
too. Yeah.
the episode opened and I'm like, oh, awesome. I was like, oh, no, this isn't going to last very long. That's okay, I guess. Yeah, so I will, I'm going to go out on a limb. We just watched the episode. It's fresh in our minds. We're sitting down here talking about it. I'm going to give it the 5 out of 5. I don't usually do that. But, it's a provisional 5 out of 5, I guess I'll say. I'll watch it again later this week and see if my mind changes. But I feel like this was kind of the key transitional episode because we know we're going to have the time skip in the next episode. And I was so worried, like, they have so much to do. And they kind of cut some corners and they skipped some things. And they just kind of the way they made everything, all the major beats work and feel good. And now I feel like, yeah, we can jump 10 years. We got the basic groundwork going and the preview for next episode. I think we're going to see Vagar look like. I just thought they did a great job. There were a lot of good moments that we're going to talk about, and I was engaged the whole time. And I loved it. Why don't we start off? We're going to do the first few batch of scenes here. Let's see. So we'll start with Daemon murdering his wife, sort of. He does in the end, I guess.
Yeah, he absolutely
not sort of. You don't need a caveat.
Right.
Right. He absolutely murdered the fuck out of his wife.
So I wasn't sure whether or not he intended her harm or not at first. And then when the horse fell over, it was like convenient, and then he finished the job. So,
Yeah, for
Just
once he
putting
finished.
your spine back in alignment. We don't know what happened.
Yeah. I mean, because she was like, oh, I didn't think you could finish, and then that pissed him off. But I mean, I'm like, well, if he wasn't there to kill her, then what else was he there for? I don't know.
It's nice how Damon's impotence is known the realm over.
Even by his wife, who he's never touched.
Well, she said they haven't consummated. That doesn't mean they didn't try.
Well, and she made it out like it was her. It was on her part, like that she was not interested, or maybe it might be she's not interested now. Maybe they tried at some point, or she wanted him at some point, but she made it out like she would have nothing to do with him anyway. So I thought that was interesting.
I think it's that because it's just like how many insults about you look worse than a sheep can one person actually take, even if it is out of feudal obligations and stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it could be something he said before he met her, or just like because he wasn't really interested in the whole marriage, and then it got back to her, and they just never had a chance.
Daemon. I think he said it to her face.
Oh, but that's what an asshole. Because anyway, because that's obviously not true. So whatever. Fuck Daemon this episode.
Also, it seems weird to me that they wouldn't try to consummate it at all. Like if they didn't, that I don't know. It's a very public thing.
Right.
The prince of the realm, who was the heir at the time that they got married.
Right. If he's thinking about having a claim, then why wouldn't he be, doing his duty and producing?
Yeah,
heirs?
I think she knows firsthand that he can't. That's my read.
I was just gonna say, I really like the way that they shot this because it did leave that question of culpability in her death. We don't really know from the books. I think you could put 2 and 2 together. Obviously, Viserys does the second he hears about her dying. And he is involved, but I like the fact that that they chose to have him not directly actually bring her down off the horse, get the horse to stomp on him, like they do in the Charity Bazaar show.
Right.
So that we still have a slight sympathy for him a little bit. And then he does test with his foot. He's testing to see how bad it is. Not that he gives a shit, but
her back's
it would
broken
have
or whatever.
been cruel to leave her there. So even though she kind of spurns him on, I think it would have been really, really cruel to not finish the job, at least.
So I have a completely different read on that, and that this is the way I saw it. Daemon was 100% taking the coward's way out. He knew she would die either of exposure or something when she was literally paralyzed on the ground in the middle of nowhere. Or he knew that she would die soon thereafter. And I think he wanted to get get it done without it. Also, you cannot tell me that Daemon Targaryen does not have a blade on his person. Like, he could have finished that job very quickly and chose instead to bash her head in, which is obviously significant for what happens at the end of the episode.
Well, it has to be an accident, though. He couldn't take his
wouldn't
blade.
a blade imply
Sure, so do that after then.
Right.
You know,
yeah, because
I don't think this was premeditated enough that I you know, it takes a while to get
that's
to
my
the
read
earring.
is that he shows up here on foot with the hood on. I'm sure no one's seen Caraxes anywhere about, right? He probably made sure of that.
Well, that's what I was wondering is, like, did the horse get spooked from him, or could he smell Caraxes nearby?
I'm guessing he didn't bring the dragon because they didn't show it, and so I'm just going to assume he didn't come. Everyone, the cousin assumes that he killed her, but like there was no like, we saw your dragon like a mile away, dude, because everyone would see that, right? I assume that he just kind of took a walk.
I was just going to say this is 100% murder. I don't think the show I think intentionally made it very clear this is 100% murder.
After the episode, they do say that like they wanted it to be ambiguous of why he was there, and I'm like, maybe for 2 seconds, like once I realized who it was.
Sure, I guess, but like,
that's why I never trust the after the episode.
Yeah, right. That's when you get the guy playing Otto telling you that like, well, Otto's right. Viserys will see it eventually.
Yeah, but I think the show made the right decision to make it clear. I think there are folks who, after watching like these 4 episodes, who have become strangely attached to Daemon Targaryen, need to realize this guy's an asshole.
But it's Matt Smith and he's hot.
They need to understand, though, Daemon Targaryen.
He's 100% a Targ, y'all.
Yes.
Well, I think that's a hidden threat in the episode, right? Because I agree. Like I feel the like, oh, poor wounded puppy Daemon Targaryen bullshit also, and I think that this episode was kind of like juxtaposing Otto's conversation with Alicent's, with the idea that like Daemon is in fact very dangerous, and not just on like a random battle in the Stepstones. He will come at innocent people to get what he wants.
Right, and then he said at the wedding feast, like, see you at the Eyrie to like make our cases to Lady Jane. Like, it's not just about like seemingly random interpersonal violence. It is about like creating a power base for himself that's not related to his brother's goodwill.
That could have read a lot differently too if they just hadn't had that scene with Rhea, and if it was just the confrontation at that dais at the wedding. Because what is he supposed to do? Pretend like this was a love match? And he is entitled to her shit if they can't prove that he was complicit.
Yeah, you mean if all we got was word of her death and not the scene?
Yeah, that would have read really interestingly, I think. But I still like the way that they ultimately
they would have left it more ambiguous. But I felt you're right that showing his quality here was the right call. We can talk more about this as we go on, but let's move on to the next scene, and then we'll talk a bit more Daemon, especially once we get down to the showing up at the wedding. So in the next scene, Viserys we see at sea, who's like seasick and through the storms and shit. Terrible.
We get first best hand.
That's right.
Lionel.
We see our new hand, which he's not really referenced much until later. And then Cole and Rhaenyra obviously having their chat. And then they arrive. I thought they were arriving for the wedding, but then I realized it wasn't the wedding, but they're at High Tide, right?
Yep.
And what's his name is not there. Corlys is not there, and kind of makes note of it. Yeah, to greet them, right? And in between that, there's a scene with Otto confronting Alicent as he leaves King's Landing and kind of making his case that, like, well, your kid's gonna be killed if you don't, do something. And she comes across again as very innocent, not wanting this. Rhaenyra's queen, all that. and we can talk about that because I've not liked that choice, and I think that's probably biased from the story of me being like, oh, Allison's a piece of shit. But I think for the show, this is actually turning out to be a good angle, and I didn't think I would think that. So, but anyway, what do you guys think of kind of the arrival, and then that conversation with Otto and Allison?
All right. Yeah, I mean, just like yet another example of Viserys being weak, right? Because just like he has to like drag the entire entourage to Driftmark to like make their case, and it's just like, and then to add insult to injury, Corlys isn't out there to formally greet them. I mean, at this stage, it's just Viserys being Viserys, right? But as far as Allison and providing a motive for her, I understand like the school of thought, but at the same time, it's like, I did have the thought of just like, like making this a self-fulfilling prophecy of like your kids are gonna die if Rhaenyra perceives them as a threat. So like, because like they don't do this in Dorne, and they have like ways to like, or like they understand this, or that this doesn't have to be this way. So that like, like to perhaps like, and like as far as like Allison's enmity towards Rhaenyra, it's not just about that. It's about like Rhaenyra sleeping around and like any perceived moral failings because of that, right?
Absolutely, and I do think it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, I think that's going to be the tragedy of it.
Right.
But they're not making her off from the beginning as like, I got to get mine, fuck Rhaenyra, and I think that kind of, for the show and for the audience, I think that does well. It creates a better character. If a couple weeks ago you asked me that, I probably would have disagreed. But
yeah, or not in this particular scene, but like as like what builds through towards the episode, it's just like whatever, like yeah, she talks to Kristen and then like trying to like, like, just like talk or find out as like Rhaenyra's ally, like more or less, but like like with the entrance, it's just like like she's ready,
oh yeah, we're gonna get to Kristen. Oh man, he did a lot of work this episode. But what do you guys think like of Lord Corlys here being slighted, kind of doing a little power play, and then once he's like, I'm here to offer my daughter in marriage, it's like, oh, sit down, get the king something. Like,
I thought it was a total power move to make Viserys come up to him like all the way there, and then also to walk Rhaenyra all the way up there to be like, oh no, not this. This is not for you, actually. I thought that was so funny. Like she ended up like just walking on the beach anyways, and they made her walk all the way up there.
right.
It was just like, it's such a power play. And then you have like Viserys who's like trying to just like deal with this. I feel like he's just trying to like make everything okay, and he can't like hold anything together, including himself. And I think that's exemplified through his health. But like it's so interesting to see like the contrasts of like, him trying to hold up the realm, and like it just seems through Viserys that it's just apparent that everything is falling apart.
Well, he did kind of like, I feel that this is an acknowledgement of, like he did not handle the Corlys situation perfectly at the outset. So it is, so like at that point, it is like a matter of like, just like humbling himself to take for a minute to take like kind of responsibility to resolve this. But yeah, it is still just like weak Viserys being weak Viserys.
I mean, I don't disagree, but I think that, like, Rhaenys straight up says he lowered himself to come here. Like, they should, and all he has to argue with is basically, like, the exact same argument that Rhaenys and Corlys made to him about Laena. So it's like, gosh, where have we heard this before? So I think he shouldn't have gone to them. He should have summoned them, and, like,
yeah, or if he had a dragon,
where they may, yeah. What are they going to do? Marry Laenor also to the Sea Lord of Braavos? I don't think so.
Right. Right.
This scene with them is some of my favorite writing of this series so far, though, because the subtle, just where you see Viserys as a king, you have to put up with a lot of shit. Like, you can't, every insult to you can't react to, but God, how much would you want to? Like, will the kids have my name? And that beat that he takes before he's like, are you suggesting the Targaryen dynasty ends now because I didn't do your bidding a few years ago? Like the
Oh yeah,
patience
that's right.
that he actually musters to respond, and
I
like
will.
that to me is just such a step too far for Corlys. Like, take the win, dude. Don't be a shithead about it. Like,
He backs down quickly enough there, but I will say I did love that exchange there because didn't we just have this discussion last week about like, well, they're Valerians, but if they had sat the throne, would they be Targaryen? It's just like a stupid discussion that like we would have, and they're like, here's like an official like, you get yours and I get mine sort of thing. And I don't know, it was like a little tidbit, like they could have just not done it all, and they actually used it for character development in the scene, and also kind of answered questions that fans like us would have. So
yeah. Well, I
it was
guess it
good.
is a valid question. It just seems shitty. Like the moment that he asked it in was a dig, but it is a valid question because a queen on the Iron Throne is unprecedented so far. So I could see where
Yeah,
is
it
that
was.
going to
I
be the
think
way
I
that it
think
is.
Padme Amidala called this aggressive negotiations.
Right.
You don't have a lot of time here, I think, to decide like whether he's going to be courteous and kind of put the past aside, or whether he wants to stick. And so he's basically like, this is his one ask, almost like, you're going to support her as queen, and so my son will be the king consort. Great. And then what does that mean for my grandkids? And that's it. Like I don't have anything else I can ask. I'm done. And it is a little, I mean, Viserys kind of invites it, I guess, too. So like, you wouldn't get away with that with other kings, but yeah, it pushes the envelope.
I also think that this scene really showed how, like, we have Viserys and Corlys talking, and it seems like very just like quick, like, okay, we think this, this, and this, and he's like, okay, and then they go back and forth about whatever, but it was very quick. And then Rhaenys comes in later on and is like, you realize that like we're putting our entire family in danger and how bad this could all end up. And it's like Corlys was just kind of like, oh, I didn't really think of that. And I feel like there's a lot more going on here, and I feel like the men in this scene were very like, one job, we're done, we're good, this is all going to be great. But it all ends up kind of not going great in the end, I guess.
That's so interesting, Casey, because I think it was really interesting to see Rhaenys take the perspective that like this could be very dangerous for Laenor and for them, when that was not how she felt about her 12-year-old daughter marrying, the 50-something-year-old king. And I think there is that like real uncertainty, even among like theoretically, even still the Valarians are their strongest allies, and certainly if this marriage goes through, they would be their strongest allies. But she's like, this could be built on a foundation of sand, no pun intended, because they're dark. But like,
well, also, Corlys is their heir, whether they like it or not. Lena is not, or sorry, not Corlys, Laenor.
But I mean, Corlys puts the point forward, when she says, "Look, his, what did he call it? His preferences, basically." And then
He'll
Corlys
grow
is like,
out of it.
he'll outgrow the gay. And she's like, right, but they don't like women ruling. Look at me. And he, I mean, like, he's got his eyes blinded by, obviously they're a very powerful house, but he hasn't felt, that they've ever arisen to their station that they should be at. Now this is a chance to be in the throne. And this, I think, sets up the fact that that Corlys is going to do a lot to make sure the succession happens, or that they have allies, which we haven't been seeing. So I think this conversation right here between the two of them sets up a lot, when we jump forward with the time skip, so that like stuff's going to have happened, because of this, because, she was smart enough to say, hey, you can't just assume this is going to go well.
Well, I appreciate the fact that she wasn't just talking about his sexuality either. First, she came at it from the political standpoint, and then the concern as a mother, I think, for like, and if he's not able to fulfill his duty and produce heirs to her, this will become war, So I liked that it wasn't just a homophobic thing. There was more, dimensions to it. And I just love her character so far. Like, hail the queen that never was. I love her.
Yeah.
I really liked him and her when they were getting towards the end of that conversation. She was kind of going into like, I mean, they didn't let me become queen, and he says I would have fought for it. Basically, is the implication of that. Like, if he could have changed it, he would have, and I love it. It's so good.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do here, we got a few more things to talk about, but we're gonna jump back here in just a second, and we got to talk about another scene. But first, Matt has joined us. If Matt, would you like to give us your rating for the episode?
So I don't know what y'all's ratings for this was, but this episode was phenomenal.
Yes.
I loved it so much. It's definitely my favorite of the season. Claire Kilner, the director, has knocked it out of the park these past two episodes, and just really nailed the whole. Well, I guess it technically wasn't the wedding at that point. It was just kind of the pre-party or whatever.
Rehearsal.
Right, the rehearsal. But just that like steady build, and we finally got to see like Ramin like really flex on the score, like in the background and all that. I just thought it was fantastic. I got up out my chair, like, and pacing, just kind of like ready for the build into the explosion, which I assumed was, as I had mentioned in last week's episode, was Kristen killing ye old Knight of Kisses. And yeah, just the back and forth between Rhaenyra and everyone, and Breakbones coming in, like bashing through everyone was fantastic. Alicent is also great, even though like I know it wasn't going to happen, but the thought of Kristen kind of going out like that at the end before Alicent stopping him, I really would have liked that like story element, even though I knew it was impossible. So yeah, I had a blast.
Awesome, that's great to hear. I think most of us had the same opinion. And just speaking about ratings, I put up on the VOK YouTube, I put up just like a quick lemon cake poll for every episode so far, just to kind of see, because I missed that from the forums. We used to have those, and it kind of gave us a lot to go off of. I also put up a poll to see like what people thought, like greens or blacks, before the show kind of started airing, which ended up about 75-25 in favor of the blacks. But I will say, I feel like looking at the numbers here, I think last week's episode was probably the most favorably viewed so far. So we'll see if that changes this week. But anyway, so let's. We're going to talk about all the wedding here in a bit. We get towards the end, we'll just kind of cover that all at once. But let's go back to Alicent in the Godswood with Larry's, and we get some mention of a tree that should only be native to Bravos. How is it here? Give me flashbacks of some Red Door shit. And then talking about tea time.
Grow in Bravos. Okay, never mind.
That's right. So that it's just like these are just like little like Easter eggs they're putting in that are fun. I don't mean anything, but and then his he's got tea time in more ways than one here. Sharing tea and talking about tea, and like, oh, I hope that tea went down really well. The Grand Maester brought it. Must have been really sick. Oh man, what a dick!
Yo, they're strong. What a bitch.
That gossipy bitch.
I love this. This is some hot gossip stuff.
It's interesting because I think we're kind of seeing Laris in like the larval stage. Like this, what he did here was like, at least to me, did not seem like a masterstroke or anything like that. Not necessarily that it was meant to be, but like, I feel like, his dad has just become, and he's like starting to feel out possibilities and like, what if I can make the queen think I'm her ally? That would be interesting. How will I do that? But it's not like, and it happens to be it works because it super unnerves Alicent. The very idea that Rhaenyra might take moon tea from the maester, my god. But like, I don't read this scene as like, oh, look at this genius just yet.
No. This is high school. This is high school snaky bullshit. But
yeah, this
I love it.
isn't Regina George. This is like one of the other ones. Yeah. But it's still fun. I mean, the balls they get rolling off of like basic shit like that in this episode, man. Oh, and this kind of connects to the scene we get later. Let's just talk about that now because it kind of fits, right? So we get this scene. We get Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole on their way back talking, about how you should leave with me. And she's like, what the fuck? I am the crown. Like, do you not get it? Like, she Walter White's him. And then after that, we get the scene with Alicent asking for Kristen Cole to be brought up. And when she was like super vague about everything, I knew what was going to happen. I think we all knew it was going to happen. She was asking him, would you know of any sort of, was Rhaenyra's honor maybe in question? I would never accuse her of anything. And he's like, I did it. Which is amazing, which really sets things up in kind of a different way than I expected.
Well,
I think
she's not talking about him.
No, she's being like, hey, did anything go down with Daemon? But she never says it. And he's so guilty. They've set him up. I mean, this is my thought was like, they've set him up as like the reverse Jaime Lannister. Like he's going to be this honorable guy in the white cloak and it's all I have. And and it's like, he's going to slowly compromise, and blame Rhaenyra for it, obviously. When it'll be his choices. But it's just interesting. This is not the Kristen Cole I expected to get, and I still don't like him. But the memes and the watchers, there's a lot of Kristen Cole stands out there so far this season. I'll just say that. So
I felt like after last week's episode where I felt like Rhaenyra really took advantage of him, I feel like this scene kind of reinforced me how much of like a little baby boy he is, and how he, I think that he is still kind of in the idealist kind of stage where, he thinks that this might be, love, true love, and he's gonna, wants to run away, but I don't think he's really like thought everything out, and you can kind of see how you can really see how guilty he is, I guess, about with the white cloak and everything.
To really take Casey because she gives him the white cloak because he's the one with all the battle experience in the group, but then to paint, like you said, like a little boy, so he's so unexperienced in all these other ways. It's sad.
It strikes me also as just the product of like the class difference, because it's just like, yeah, he had his own adventurous youth, as he likes to say, but like, he doesn't seem to have like dealt with being the lover of a married woman before,
or anyone.
Yeah.
Would you say so? The actor is 28, and we're about to get this 10-year time skip. So in the future, what is Kristen Cole, like in his 30s, probably, right? Once we do the time skip. So here he's like early 20s for the show. Does that sound right?
It doesn't sound terrible to me.
I don't know if he's younger. I don't know if they're wanting us to think he's younger or not. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What age they're representing.
He speaks about like, because during the hunt he does speak about his like so-called adventurous youth. Like it was like a significant portion of his life, but it was still long enough ago that like now he's just like in a different phase of like and looking to like settle down and commit himself fully to something, if not someone, which
Yeah, I just
goes
thought I'd
into his
find a
idea of the white
queen
cloak.
and settle
Yeah.
down and get married. And well, why did you join the? Why did you petition for the Kingsguard? I don't know. I was in college.
But like dedicating his life to the order, if not a
Yeah.
woman, just like having that singularity of purpose after having done and partied and had fun.
And I think he fully did commit himself, right? I mean, like it's
Yeah.
there's so far he bests Damon at the tournament, and he is the noble knight. Like he has been following the ideals up until this point, and obviously as a thing for Rhaenyra, they have the issue last week, and it breaks him. I don't want that to be people saying that it justifies everything that he ends up doing later on. But so far, at least show Kristen Cole. I mean, this is meant a lot to him. Like he thought, the White Book and all of that.
Yeah, it means something to him, and then for Rhaenyra to just like bang him, but then go marry someone else, it just like it must feel like quite a shock because he said, like I made a vow, I broke that vow, and now I'm being like, just told to be that I could be your dirty little secret,
This scene, I finally figured out who this actor reminds me of, and it's Christian Bale in the 90s version of Little Women, especially when he's proposing that they run away together. It's very Laurie trying to get Joe to marry him. I do like that she does allow herself that little moment when she steps away. I read it as she considers it for half a second. She allows herself to imagine it, even knowing the answer she's going to give. And perhaps it's a little cruel to him to give him that moment of hope. But I think it's important for her to take that beat of, you're born into this shit. So do you ever actually think about whether it's what you want or not? Or is it because you just, this is what it is from cradle to grave. This is your life. You don't have choices. So I appreciated them giving her that moment to take that beat.
Also, how much do we think the prophecy is factoring into what she's thinking about during that scene of running away?
Maybe 15%.
If you want to read that into it, you can read it into it. But I don't think you need that as a motivation.
She starts talking about Aegon the Conqueror, and I think that is like her trying to wedge in like Targaryen responsibility and dynasty without giving away their family secret.
Yeah, that's what I read the whole Aegon talk as.
I kind of read her more as like, I think she's still kind of feeling that like invincibility that she felt in the last episode, that like, like I can be queen and have it all too. Why would I leave this? It doesn't matter if it's you or somebody else. It's, this is what I'm going to be doing.
I just felt like the whole thing was really sad because, like, I mean, I'm really annoyed that they're making me feel all these things for Kristen Cole, but like to me, his arc through the episode is pretty clearly somebody who, like, all the rules have very quickly gone right out the window. He's like, he even says like the reason I pitched running away with you is because like if we could get married, maybe at least that would like redeem my honor, and then he confesses fucking the virgin princess, to the queen. And, like, his whole defense is, like, I know I'm gonna be killed, but, like, could you just kill me before you, like, mutilate me?
Yeah, he's, like, begging for death.
Yeah, and then I think, like, I don't want to excuse what he does at the end, but I think there's an element of confusion and terror that is going on with him that, like, really does not know how to cope with a third person and a total stranger knowing the most dangerous secret and destabilizing secret of his life. I hate that I feel so clearly about, like, I feel like I can understand his motivation so well, but like and it's tragic because Rhaenyra just doesn't see any of that. Like, she really doesn't. She just doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Is that not such a George move though?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a like Theon, Jaime a bit, like, to make you like take this character that we all expect to hate because of our preconceived notions and just kind of put this on us. And I mean, he's being very emo, but he's also in real danger. And you're right. He goes from like the queen knowing to, we'll get to the wedding, but like to another person knowing, like his head explodes.
Yeah, he spends
Yeah.
most of this episode in a suicidal mindset, right?
I was gonna say,
Yes.
very self-destructive is what it feels like he is right now. Like I think it's obvious that we're supposed to think of him that way because right after the scene that we'll get to, he goes and is very obviously contemplating suicide. Like his motivation here is like, I've totally ruined this opportunity in my life and my name. I should just kill myself and get it over with,
Yeah, you can definitely even interpret him attacking Sir Joffrey that way because, to just like unprovokedly attack someone in the king's court like that is just like a major crime that you could very well expect to pay for with your life.
He seems like someone who needs like a North Star and is like an idol he can sort of like revolve his life around. And I feel like the fact that Alicent has kind of pulled him back from the edge, like she's going to replace Rhaenyra sort of in his mind, is is like kind of like this fixture that he can believe in, maybe not like in an erotic sense or like a romantic sense, but just like, oh, like I had this goddess and now you can be my new goddess. I can't think for myself.
It feels very much like he needs a Brienne in his life, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Like in a Jaime sense, he needs someone to like be a moral North Star for him.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think the problem is his morality because he shows himself to be extremely moral, like overly so. He behaves much more like Ned than Jaime Lannister. Well, I mean, the problem is he was compromised by his social station, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's the problem. It's not him like having a decision to make. He had no decision to make when
Yeah.
forced it upon him.
That's true.
So I feel like this is somebody who is honorable, who has this whole idea about what it means to be a good knight, what it means to be a dutiful king's guard, and he got just got thrown into the game into the game with no shot, with no preparation. Rhaenyra put him one direction, and now Alicent's going to pull him the other direction.
It feels very Jaime, actually, because like
maybe like young Jaime, a younger Jaime.
Yeah. I mean, like young Jaime. That, to be clear, when he first joins the King's Guard.
Yeah, after he's been fucking his sister forever.
Yeah, well, and that's when he's away from her. That's the thing. Once he's at King's Landing, he's away from her, and he's around these men that like he considers them almost gods to him. Arthur Dane, Gerald Hightower, and Barristan Selmy are like gods to this kid. So what happens afterwards when all these men are mostly dead? Well, now he's back with Cersei. And I kind of see that for Kristen, where it's he's kind of had this person he's been following and feeling like very ready to fight for in Rhaenyra, and now he's lost it, and now he's moving to a new queen.
Yeah, let's we're gonna circle back around on that when we get to the final scene because there's a lot to unpack before we get there. But I do agree. We have a couple more scenes here just to go over real quick before we get to the main event here with our wedding, green wedding. I don't know what we're gonna call it. But let's go back here. So these are all kind of tied up, right? What do we have? We have the scene with Rhaenyra and Laenor on the beach, talking about basically how they're going to have an open marriage, and then and then we transition from that to Laenor and Joffrey, the Knight of Kisses. I don't know why they call me that. Talking about how things could work out. We both kind of have an understanding, which these scenes I feel like they kind of speak for themselves. And then we get Viserys right before the wedding. Viserys is leeched. As he talks to his new hand and kind of ponders, like, am I going to be a good king? So what did you guys think? You guys have anything to say about those?
One other scene is when they return to King's Landing and Alicent is looking out over the balcony at Viserys collapsing, and her expression is like, could freeze water. Like,
right.
He does not give a shit. And it's a very interesting, like, obviously no one's looking at her, but it felt like a very interesting, like, view into how she actually feels about the situation that she's been put in her life.
The scene with Viserys is yeah, I think I mean Patty Constantine is doing a terrific job, but I don't like. I feel like there's such such deep tragedy in what he's saying, and realizing, because he feels like his mortality creeping up on him, and he's realizing that he's not the person he could have been. And like, what is his line? Like, I often think in the crucible I might have been forged a better man. And it's just sad. It's like he held up peace, but he also feels like he didn't do enough. And he hasn't he was never tested. Like, he doesn't have anything remarkable about him, or any like sustaining legacy that's going to make him be remembered in a profound way, and it's disappointing. It's it's really sad.
There's no crisis that he is going to be remembered for solving. There's no like Mirish pirates invading Tarth for him to go on Dragonback and deal with and be like lauded as this hero, or there's no project that he's worked on really, like the road project that Jaehaerys works on, to like truly make his reign seem more glorious. For him, it's just a continuation of Jaehaerys. And
the one conflict that he had that opportunity to make his name in, he chose to stay out of. And, his brother and a member of his small council circumvented his directive and won glory for themselves rather than him being able to claim that.
I think Viserys made a lot of terrible decisions. He's not a good king. He should never have been king. I think like what make him more empathetic to me is his self-awareness, and how Paddy Considine played that self-awareness throughout this, like all the kings that we saw throughout Game of Thrones. Robert Baratheon, Joffrey Baratheon. You can even argue Stannis and Renly, even Robb. They lack self-awareness. They think of themselves as gods, or they feel like they're entitled to whatever position that they have. But Viserys is someone who, I think, he shows his weakness, which is bad as a king, but it makes me feel like, man, this is a good guy if he wasn't in that position.
Healthier, maybe if he had his dragon, he would have stayed healthier. Yeah. Also, I mean, I wonder how he makes it through the time skip. But
I know, I was a little bit like, this guy looks like he's on his last legs already.
I was like, are we just gonna have him die here? Like, oh.
If you've seen him in the preview, he looks
not looking good.
Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, by the time we get there, he's had years of kind of being useless, and it'll be sad. But
it might be that actually if Melos passes on, that Orwell is the one taking care of him, and so he does end up lasting a little bit longer. The implication from that scene where Melos is like, "Oh, we need to leech him again," instead of the herbal poultices.
He loves his wheat leeches.
Yeah,
and that's the second time too that Orwell's made an attempt to have a better treatment. At least in the previous, when he suggests cauterization, at least Melos at that point says, "Okay, yes, we'll go with that." But
right,
I always felt Melos was incompetent.
Does his whole arm fall off eventually? Because I couldn't tell if that was salve or infection or
it don't look good.
Greg thought it was grayscale. I don't know what was going on.
The throne rejected him, Casey.
I know. Well, I know.
But super practically, I think that he has diabetes. If we were going to diagnose that, the way his wounds don't heal, little cuts and things, I'm guessing he has diabetes. Maybe type 2 rich diet.
Make perfect sense.
And they don't know. I mean, I see this a lot in my field. And a lot of people that have these issues uncontrolled, or that are non-compliant, and it just keeps going, gets worse. They don't heal from anything.
We'll just
but
have to stay
in this
tuned
world, it's
next
the
week
dragon.
to Dr. VOK.
Doc Vox.
Well, do you have any idea how much diabetes medication costs in Westeros? Even the king can afford that. Anyway, okay, all right, let's stop.
Can I just say, on a meta level, I thought it was very, very interesting that this scene was like, you could hear the fire crackling so loudly, and he's talking about a crucible, which is, you get forged through fire, when he's talking to Lionel Strong, who, we know how he dies.
Yeah, he's like, call me
Yeah,
a Bendigo.
They've been doing a lot of that.
Fire.
Yeah,
a lot of that.
yeah.
I find it fun.
And I there's a theory that like Viserys gets so upset about Rhaenyra's bastards that he is the one who orders the burning of Harrenhal. And if that's the case, this scene is like so amazingly ironic, just so good.
Ooh, interesting. All right. So let's say anything finally to go through all these scenes that we've just gone through. Anything else to say before we move on to wedding stuff?
So we're actually not going to talk about orgy paintings in.
Oh,
Allison.
see, this is the time. Go ahead.
It was so distracting. That's part of my half a point off for this episode. I was just very distracted by it. Although I did find it fascinating, like it would be historically accurate. But there's like all this dispersions being cast on Laenor for his sexuality, and there's a pretty graphic picture hung on the Queen of Westeros wall of sodomy. So, is it a good or bad thing that I didn't notice any of that in this episode? It probably means you're more mature than me. Freud will probably have a field day with the fact that I couldn't stop looking at it. So it was just so there. It felt like very in my face.
I totally missed it. I feel blind to it.
Well, there were parts where it was like framing her too, so I didn't understand the choice there of, it's not histories, it's not dragons, it's not scenes of epic battles or the conquest or whatever. It's people fucking.
Well, I do think it symbolizes like Viserys's or the decadence of the court, right? Because it's just like, in hindsight, it is the run up to the greatest crisis of the dynasty, right? So I feel it's very fitting to have, or to go on about how everything is so decadent and no one's addressing the real problems, etc.
Yeah, maybe in a practical way, it's hung in the queen's room to kind of get her ready to make heirs.
Juices flowing.
Little rev up to her engine, so she's ready to go when it's time to heir and spare. I don't know. It was an odd choice for me. I would love to hear the set decorators experience with creating that. And I would like to know if they are real world medieval paintings, because I've seen ones that are similar.
I don't know. There are those illuminated. I don't know. There are those illuminated medieval manuscripts about the penis tree, right? So.
And there are several movies that do this where they have the whole plot of the movie basically hidden in paintings and pictures around the, there's a couple films that have done that. But yeah, I mean, I guess there was an article I did see last week, I think, that in the last Thor movie, at one point there's a whiteboard where they're drawing a bunch of stuff that it pauses for half a second and moves on. But if you pause it, it has the whole plot of the movie on it. You never notice that in the theater. I don't know. It's probably a fun thing to do. All right. So let's move on to the wedding, which I thought we didn't have enough time in the episode left to do all this. A week of, partying and all that, and we didn't. So the ships arrived for the wedding, the Valerian fleet. Now, at first I thought this was Caraxes and Syrax flying around.
I think Sea Smoke
and
Melis.
One of them was definitely red,
Melis,
right?
Isn't
Melis, the Red Queen.
The red, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Oh,
all right.
Dragon's right.
Look, this is going to happen a lot. This is DragonCast, so I'll have to get better at it. I'll keep like a picture of them up in the background. I'm like, I was wait a second because like that's not Daemon. What's going on? Anyway, we get the dragons. It's great. And Viserys announces that there's going to be a wedding. All that stuff going on. I think they did mention earlier that like weddings and tournaments are a good place for people to plot. We're seeing all of these lords around. Everyone's getting announced. The Baratheons, yada yada yada. And then when Corlys arrives, man, like the score for his arrival is like on fire. I got to see if I can find that online somewhere and like rip that beat, because I was like, damn, and like he rolls deep. Like his whole family is there. Like they arrive. Like hey, future part of the royal household here. I thought that was really cool.
They interrupt poor cousin Royce. He's like, Rhaenyra's like, if we can do anything. Oh, never mind. Just go away.
I enjoyed him cutting in front of the high towers for that scene too.
Right. And then we get after all that, eventually he's giving his speech to everyone, and we're going to unite our two great household, and everything stops because they have to announce the queen, and Alicent has showed up, and she's wearing the green, and they talk about how green means war. The light of the high towers shines green when they call the banners, right? And then Gerald Royce is clowning on, or not really clowning, but accusing Daemon after he arrives awkwardly as well. For Runestone, and then we get the Night of Kisses, we get the riot, we get the Kristen Cole suicide, all that. There's a lot happening here, and I think we this is probably where we're going to spend a good bit of time here, kind of trying to break down exactly how this all went. So, what
bet
did you
some
guys?
of the book purists are like super mad that and I'm thinking of two particular book purists who are also racist at the same time, who are like, Rhaenyra didn't wear white when Alicent wore green. She wore black, and yeah. Anyway, I'm just taking this opportunity.
I know you're not talking about
some racists.
I know you're not talking about Greg, but he said the same thing during the show, and I was just like,
I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I wanted her to wear black too.
Yeah, that was the moment for it, but it's okay. It's okay.
We haven't gone there yet.
There are some purists that are gonna be like, well, Kristen Cole murdering this dude in the middle of the dance is not how that goes down.
Oh my god, he murders him in the middle of the dance.
I did not expect that.
The dance. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot cooler than murdering him in a tournament. Murdering people in tournament is just a thing now.
Well, it kind of is, and you knew what was going on, but I also thought, like, well, maybe Daemon's doing it. Maybe, like, what's happening? You couldn't see what was going on, and they did a good job.
Might have been started somewhere else. I wasn't expecting that the fight was going to be started by Kristen to purposely attack him.
Is that what? So we don't really see when the fray starts.
Yeah, that's just it. I think we're supposed to not really understand, but they have this conversation where he tries to he's bringing an olive branch, and this is, as we talked about earlier, the state of mind that Kristen Cole is in. No, I think he was bringing an olive branch, saying like, "Hey, we both know each other's secrets, and we're going to protect them." Like, it is threatening, but at the same time, it's like, "Hey, I know that you know that I know that." You know what I mean? And that can be something where you're like, "Hey, we got this, right?"
I feel bad for Joffrey, but the scene before that, right before he goes to Kristen,
he kept his mouth shut.
I was going to say, he's being really loud about something you really need to shut up about. What are you doing? Like,
yeah, I think he thought it was going to work out for him. I mean, because he's like, oh, he's got his radar on. He's like, oh yes, yeah, man, that's the Kristen Cole. It's clearly him, and like no one else knows this, but he sees it immediately. Like, oh, look at him. He can see how he's going through issues. He's miserable over there, right? And then he just can't wait to like go talk about it.
It's really crazy too, because we know that Alicent, when she approaches him, is talking about Daemon.
Right.
And so he must be like, fuck me, how many people know? And
right.
Was this all like a big joke that Rhaenyra is playing on me? So they didn't be approached so casually when you're on the verge already and in public that way. He must have just snapped, but I still don't think that's how it started. I'm not sure we were supposed to read it as that's what started that sort of conflict in there.
Well, I mean, I think it was so chaotic at the beginning is a deliberate thing to show to the viewer, because if that's what they're experiencing in the hall, like Cole can later say, like he started it and no one knows any wiser, because like when you're in a big crowd situation like that, you're not really paying attention to what another person is doing.
Yeah,
On
there are
that
no
level,
body
and
cams in
right,
Westeros, so
and like then Alicent will use her clout to just like reinforce that, right, and then to just like let Kristen Cole walk. Really,
I really liked once the fight started, Lionel using his son as like his little enforcer, like go grab the princess, get her out of there.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
and he
just,
just
like,
knocks
bodily
everyone out of the way,
calling
picks her up,
her.
and goes. And I mean, this
He's
is
like beating people up and then getting deeper into the fight to get to her.
take me to bed, Break Bones. Take me to bed.
I know we touched on the weakness of Viserys, but this like puts a point on it probably before. This is the last chance that we see him, I think, even a little bit functional, right? So this kind of puts a point on it, like his daughter is maybe in mortal danger, like shit's going down, and like he can't even do anything. Like he can barely stand here.
Yeah,
And
he
no one
can't
notices that,
shout
obviously,
and demand.
but-
Even the Kingsguard, honestly, I guess they're taking their cues from him, because they could have. There were 7 of them. They could have been in there, like tearing
6.
people, or 6, I guess. But
Yeah. Well, you have to leave someone to protect the king. They don't know what's going on at this
All right,
point.
fine,
That's
fine.
part of it. Is the confusion, right? Is they don't know if they're needing to get in there and do something, or if something's coming from them. If it's a poisoning, if it's like a coup, like what the hell is happening? They just know people are freaking out over there.
I mean, it was very interesting because, like, yeah, I think as far as ambiguity goes, we really don't know exactly what triggered Kristen to do that. Like, was it premeditated as far as the moment that like he does touch his sword when Joffrey moves away, and I was like, oh, is he going to do it now? He did not. So something else happened that either provoked him or he decided to do it. I just, I feel like the Velaryon court must be very chill, because like, Joffrey, no, you don't, like, from Cole's perspective, he's fucking around and finding out, and like he didn't mean it that way. It wasn't, he wasn't threatening him, but like it's really easy to see why he would read it that way. And I keep comparing it, to Rhea Royce's like head getting crushed in by Daemon at the beginning of the episode, and like that to me is like an act of unmitigated aggression and selfishness. And Cole's is just more complicated. Like, it is those things, but it's also self-defense, it's also despair, it's like a whole bunch of shit.
It definitely feels like, as far as people that earned this, although I don't think Joffrey earned this, obviously, he did more so than Rhea, which is to say, like, he's going there to poke a bear. Like, first off, you're guessing at this. You are guessing at this, right? He does not know for sure. He has not talked to Rhaenyra. He's not confirmed this. He's totally shooting in the dark here, revealing himself and Laenor, right? And then saying that he thinks that he's fucking the princess. Like, the level of like implications that are going on here.
Yeah, because like he's a Kingsguard. This is not like a random dude at the feast.
Yeah, I know. Again, he thinks this is chill. I think he thinks that this is like we're about to bond, and I'm gonna let him know I'm in on it, and like.
Yeah, I think he also thinks he's keeping Laenor safe.
We're both plus ones. We can be friends,
Yeah, Kristen Cole is like, this is not how shit goes in King's Landing. I'm gonna have to kill a dude. Like,
this is a noob player who thinks he's completely smooth-brained. He figured everything out, and he goes and tried to play a game with a guy who has no interest in playing any game whatsoever.
He's going straight to the final boss.
It just wants to kill you after you said that.
Yeah.
It takes one to know one kind of thing where, he's carrying on a secret dalliance. Some people have gaydar. Some people have, I guess, secret
Romance
Kingsguard.
star.
Yeah, princess star. I suppose.
Yeah,
me,
well,
it-
no,
to me,
no
it
one
just
else
felt
is
like-
looking for a lover, right? No one is looking for someone who might be her consort at this wedding, because like literally no one knows this. And if the conversation with Alicent goes different, where she was like, "Oh my gosh, I was thinking Daemon," but like, hey, all right, thanks for telling me, and like, absolutely, you know, we don't need to worry about this, whatever. Like, none of that happens. She just sort of lets him walk off because she's shocked that it's him, and like, he's just like spinning in his head. Like, I don't know. Maybe if that conversation goes differently, he's not looking like this, and he's not found out so quickly. I don't know.
It's another reason why I'm very chagrined about the omission of Mushroom in this series.
I thought I
Would have
saw
been-
him at first.
Well, I know
thought
I
it
was like
him.
on Easter eggs for a second with the band, but that can't be him because he's supposed to be thought of as developmentally challenged, and that's how he gets in these spaces where he can pick up on all this gossip because no one thinks that he's got anything going on upstairs, but he's actually really shrewd. But it might have been meant to be an Easter egg. I'm not sure.
I mean,
I will say
playing drums is not. I mean, you can still be developmentally challenged and play drums and stuff.
like
Or
a
be
savant.
yeah, or something of
guess.
that nature.
Um,
Or he's been trained to do this as part of an
But how
act. Or
how much more fun would it have been for this to come out from Mushroom, though? You know, rather than like this misunderstanding, mistaken identity thing with Alicent and Chris and Cole.
I don't know. This is like actually about the characters, and like, while Mushroom's great and everything, I don't know how they would have gotten away with having a dwarf character when like half of the success of Game of Thrones was Peter Dinklage getting to play a real human being, and then Mushroom like having a dwarf character who was just
Yeah,
stuff going on, but like
about this on Wolfcast, and that was one of the things we were talking about. Is it maybe the decision was that it's just too
like Game of Thrones,
tricky to tell without being offensive and things.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely feel exploitative. I think, in not in a good way, or like not be able to translate that to the audience. That like, yes, it is exploitative in universe and bad, but might come off tasteless to other people.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we have like a Mushroom like cameo, like because they've been putting a lot of like kind of Easter eggs in. Like it's something they could do and like not make like they're sort of avoiding the issue. I mean, they could definitely have it in there and not really have to deal with it as well. So, but it's not needed either way. I feel like it is kind of, I don't know. It would be fun, but I guess that's not the narrative device they wanted to go with.
Yeah, needed. I wanted to point out the overkill with Kristen Cole and Joffrey is almost a completely mirrored shot of Rhaenyra's overkill of the boar in the wood a couple episodes back.
Yep.
I appreciated the visual connect the dots they did there, stringing these two.
That's a good point.
Experiences. And the other thing I wanted to point out was that she's not wearing black. And I think we'll probably still see that moment where it's actually supposed to happen at the tourney. But Viserys the First is wearing black, and then when she sits next to him, that was a little bit of, I couldn't tell if I liked it or I really thought, oh, that's even more poignant though to pit them against each other in that way.
No, I agree. I think that it was really I think they really, really tried to hone in on the fact that Alicent was wearing green in this episode, and probably even a little bit too much. Like she was wearing red all through the past episodes, and then she turned to green upon Viserys' arrival to kind of signify that she is not with him anymore. She is with her father.
And I will say, I didn't even notice she hadn't been wearing green at all. Like, I assume she's worn like a green dress or something in the first, few episodes. But I mean, I guess they made such a point of it.
She did wear green when courting, I guess you could say, or hanging out in Viserys's room.
Right, because she was wearing
that
her
first
mom's
episode,
dress,
but after
yeah.
that, she wears red.
Okay.
She's wearing that it's a blue with a lot of green base in it as well.
And this goes back to a discussion we had on the Discord, though, because she's never referred to as Alicent Targaryen. No, it's just in the same way that like Cersei Lannister, like I think she's referred to as Cersei Baratheon in the book a few times, but generally she's Lannister. She wears Lannister colors. Like there are some women that seem to kind of keep their last name, but it mostly seems to be people that are like narratively important, because almost all the women in the world, like they might acknowledge that they used to be, you know, a Lannister or whatever it is they were, but they are definitely integrated into their house a lot more. It's just interesting.
I have a very silly question because Greg and I argued about this for like 5 minutes. Is the dress that Alicent is wearing with like all the like strappiness in her arms, is it blue or is it green?
It's like a cyan kind of, or I guess maybe aquamarine verging on.
I think it's still in the green category. Greg was like, she's wearing blue, not green. It's stupid that she's wearing blue. I'm like,
It is. It's a blue, but it has a strong green base. Does
Yeah,
that make sense? Like,
I thought it was
It's-
very green.
it's not
It's
green.
emerald. It's
It's the
emerald.
dress all over again.
I think that's
Uh,
important though, because like the very first scene we see her in, she's wearing that like very Sansa-esque light blue. So I think that is kind of a transition dress for her,
Yeah.
like between her stages of her life. And like the first scene in the episode, she's wearing the black and red, and then we see her switch. Not sure when exactly, but we see her switch to the strappy number that is kind of in between, and then she goes for like the full-on green.
Yeah, the jewel tone helps to kind of age her up a bit from like true youth and maidenhood with that, like you said, that Sansa image. That was exactly what I thought when I first saw it. I was like, oh, it's Sansa. We've seen that costume and that wig before. And then I think the red that she's wearing after she's given birth, that's sort of more. It's not as sexy. It's not as form fitting, so it's more motherly. And it gives off that vibe of being really connected to the family with the red, I guess.
I mean, because she is a cool stepmom.
Not anymore. She ain't.
Well, she calls Rhaenyra stepdaughter, right, when she walks in.
Yeah, she kind of is establishing their relationship now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's.
Power move.
What was
Yeah.
what was the light that, or the line that her uncle says? Something like, I was worried that you would wither, without your
Father here.
father in King's Landing, but
Ugh.
like you're shining bright or whatever. I was like,
Yeah.
oh damn! Like they are setting her up to have fans, to have audience support, and I'm okay with that now. I don't know, because shit'll happen later, but
They're gonna. I mean, they have to do that if it's gonna be a TV series, right? They need the Team Edward, Team Jacob publicity thing, right?
yeah, I think it's the right move.
Well, also to go back to the very beginning, like Otto blames her, for his getting dismissed, and it's like,
Oh
A,
yeah,
fuck you off a cliff, and B, like that is a very powerful goad for her at the start of the episode, because what has she literally done for the past like 5 years? Literally nothing except what her dad has told her to do. She has been, married off, birthing away, like however you want to characterize her sex with Viserys. It's not great, and then he's just like, it's your fault I was fired because you didn't believe, you chose the princess's word over mine. And
Yeah.
like
Also, his words ring so false.
yeah.
So manipulative in that initial scene to me. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, he's like grasping at stuff there.
I
I mean,
mean,
Otto's wrong, right? He's wrong
in a
about
way,
most
he's
everything.
right.
Like,
In a way, he's right, because she should have the king's ear, and if Viserys is the type of person to just listen to the last person who talked to him, to have their way. She should have been badgering him about this, even in bed, from Otto's perspective. But yeah.
On Burgundy, he'll say anything
but
on the center.
I more mean like the like, oh, she's gonna kill your kids. To like
Right. At this point, does that make any sense? Like once Damon comes into the picture and they're married, you can go, oh yeah, dude's gonna kill the kids. Like you can
Right.
say Rhaenyra's cool and you guys are cool, but he's not gonna let anything stand in the way. But
You
right
know-
now, that's not an issue.
He
I
doesn't
think
know Rhaenyra, though.
At this
I mean,
point,
I mean,
Well-
it's been his job for however many years to catastrophize and like think of worst case scenarios. I think it makes sense for him to understand that when you're like dealing with the highest seat in the world that can fuck with people's heads and make them do terrible things to sit in it. It doesn't like he's trying to emphasize a point before he leaves. I can understand why he would go to that far. He's trying to.
And it's in his interest to emphasize this point. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I get that. I just don't think it's true.
From the hunt. I mean, those people were speaking really out. You know, Homeboy says Aegon the Second, and nobody bats much of an eye about it, including Viserys.
Yeah, that's a hard part because as the king, I mean, if you're putting that person too far in their place, you're chiding them for acknowledging your child, but also like insulting another child. I don't know. That's just a hard position to be in. But yeah, I mean, he just sort of lets it go, and that's not good either.
Well, I think this actually kind of crystallized something for me about why Alicent does what she does. Like that doubt that her father plants in her head, I think becomes like that shit explodes once she realizes that, you know, not only has Rhaenyra lied to her about not having sex, period, but she has allowed her to believe that it was with Daemon when it was with somebody else completely. And somebody else with considerably more fraught political consequences, ironically.
Well, and she must expect then, you know, so she knows that Moon Tea was delivered. She can kind of expect. I mean, if Rhaenyra knows the rumors about Laenor, she must know them too. And it not that what Otto said was right, but she must be seeing the pieces lock in of, well, if this gets out in the realm and there are people that want to climb, they can use my sons to do that climbing. And, you know, have it come out that, oh, her heirs are not real heirs. So that must motivate some of her action here. Obviously, by next week, we'll really see her doubling down on that. But this must be sort of the start of those wheels turning in her head as a mother.
Her face when she realizes that she's been lied to is like it's a good face journey, but I think it makes emotional sense to realize that you don't know your best friend, like
yeah,
the person that you thought you had figured out and trusted and believed in and sacrificed for, and suddenly like they've been living a life that you had no idea about. They haven't confided in you. They've used you.
Yeah.
They've manipulated you. It makes sense that she'd be like, okay, I guess
Well,
this is
technically,
how it's going to be.
Rhaenyra didn't lie to her, though, as far as Alicent knows, because Rhaenyra definitively said, Daemon never touched me.
She
So
lied
this-
by omission.
So it is
yeah,
a
I think
lie.
it's
by
almost worse.
Yeah,
Like,
lie.
right, but then it's also like a straight of, okay, well, Alicent, you did that to Rhaenyra too.
I actually think that it felt to me like Alicent was more mad that, quote unquote, Rhaenyra ruined herself by having sex rather than, I don't, you know, I'm sure she's mad that she told a half-truth or lied too, but to me it felt more that she was upset that she lost her virginity and might actually be kind of jealous of her being able to live the life that she wishes to live.
Yeah, despite her having lost her virginity at 16 to the king, I mean,
Right. Like I think it's very layered in like there's a lot of layers to Alicent as there is to Rhaenyra. But that's what I was feeling this episode, and it made me more on team blacks than green, I guess. I already was, but more so this episode I feel that way.
Yeah, I think I wrote about it in the forum during this week, but yeah, it's just like it's just right. It's like Alicent has had to play by the rules. She was even pimped out by her father in order to get her married. Like just like like that kind of resentment. It seems like that's at least a part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. She's I don't know that she's mad that if she feels mad that Rhaenyra has lost her virginity, that is sublimating the fact that she's jealous that Rhaenyra got to.
I mean, the basis of their conflict going forward is just is going to be about Rhaenyra's bastard children, right? So just to the point where when Rhaenyra takes King's Landing again, they're gonna or there's that whole brothel queen scenario, right? That allegedly may or may not have happened. That oh, you like to go on about bastards so much, you can go get one of your own.
I could be totally off here, but I think after Viserys dies, at least once, Alicent and Cole are gonna do it.
Good. That would make her. That would explore how she's
Yeah.
about kind of hypocrisy, right? About how she spoke about the Targaryen incest last episode. Now she I want to say that Aegon and Helena get married before Viserys dies, but if he's going to be so sick and incapacitated going forward, then and also he seems to keep her counsel about this, so she probably at least consents to it, right? So
Right.
I like that this is setting this kind of stuff up.
I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if once we get the time skip, they're already kind of behind closed doors.
Right. I think that they're setting up for them both to be, two people who have had to conform to what they were given, Alicent for Viserys, and Christian to, get with Rhaenyra. I still feel that she kind of manipulated him a bit in that sense, the previous episode, and so it kind of makes sense for them both to get together to maybe heal some of that wound, whether it's a friendship or maybe even more than that would be interesting.
I think Alicent would do it while the king is alive. I think that's too risky.
Yeah, I see them more as a friendly.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they don't want to. But I just feel like
he's not functional though for quite a bit, right? I don't know.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I don't know. I just see her as very, very practical.
If it's in that way, then at least if they don't consummate any relationship they may or may not have while Viserys is alive, at least Alicent consider herself, well, at least I'm not performing treason by cheating on the king, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That makes me better, right?
Yeah,
they
might be eye fucking the whole time, but yeah,
right. And somehow that makes her better than Rhaenyra in her mind, just because reasons. But
I think it's also funny that she lied to Rhaenyra, and I don't think that can be underrated. And then she wants to also be so upset that Rhaenyra lied to her.
She lied
to
Rhaenyra.
That's what I meant about. Right, so she lied to Rhaenyra about seeing Viserys before they got married, and it's just that's what I meant by saying see, as if Alicent hadn't done this to Rhaenyra, right?
She doesn't lie. She just doesn't tell her, which I agree she should have. But first of all, also I gotta say, I love that we can just get elbow deep into these characters. It's so great. But I really don't view it as deception. I view it as a scared person who's the king, the literal king, is don't tell my daughter that we're doing this thing. And then she's going to be hey, Rhaenyra, that's just not her. And not a lot of people.
I understand that, but no, it's more of a question of why can't she afford the same grace to herself?
Well, I mean, again, I think there's just very different. I think there's just,
and I understand why she thinks that way. But at the end of the day, that's what it is. And it's as we're looking for Rhaenyra's flaws of she has no regard for the common people. I think it's worth it to just consider this is one of Alicent's flaws.
Also, she was gone she was meeting with the king secretly for 6 months. she definitely lied in that time at one point directly about what she was doing. If she's meeting the king, I mean, obviously she's probably not going every night to meet the king, right? But
Right.
But I mean,
the assumption is they have
Michal,
pretty common
so-
meetings.
have a choice to say if the king is saying don't tell anyone, she can't just willy-nilly go start, hey, guess what, I'm trying to get set up with your dad. It's
But
not.
it seemed like when he says that
I
in that
understand
scene,
that,
it seems
but,
like
like-
they'd been meeting for a while. Like,
Oh, no,
and he
it-
was like, don't tell her about this.
We know
Like-
it had been 6 months.
That's what
we
I'm
know
saying,
that
like-
for sure that it had
So
been 6 months.
The explicit "don't talk" thing comes like way after the point you would have expected her to have told her best friend, right?
It's not that there was never any direction from either Otto or Viserys to keep that, under a tighter lid.
Again, I understand where it comes from. It's just like for me, it's about the double standard and not about like the specifics of the king said. Yes, I understand
Right,
the king
right.
said.
Mm.
Right?
I
It's
don't know.
about not giving again, yes, and yes, like Otto only had her go see Viserys once, like literally like the night or in order to like really like finally give Viserys the push into proposing to her, right? But like at the same time, it's just it's the double standard, and it's the way of and the fact that Rhaenyra was doing that for her own pleasure and not as a political tool of her father's, and any like resentments that might bring up. And
Yeah, that's a good point. I think too, like, how many times do we see this in a show or movie? It's like, well, if you just said the thing, we could avoid all this.
It's Meet the Parents all over again.
Yeah.
I guess I just don't, and we can move past this because it's water under the bridge by 10 years already. But like, I guess I just don't see them as like equal to be a double standard. Like, one is a scared 16-year-old girl who's being pushed around by her father and a very much older king, and the other is like a girl who's lying to her best friend so that like her best friend so she can continue to get away with it. And again, like I don't think Rhaenyra is evil for that lie. I think that was a
Right.
big part of her character, like coming into like frankly her agency of like I get to decide what other people know about me. But like I guess I just don't see them as equal enough to be a double standard.
But I guess my point is that neither of them are wrong. So if Alicent is like shocked by it, like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, they should both just, it's natural. It's fine. But, I don't know.
We could really have a field day here with consent and this world because, they are best friends, but even that is like, you're kind of assigned the friends that you're assigned as a noble. Like, is Alicent's position really a true friendship, or is it a manifestation of positions at court? And how much is it organic and how much is manufactured by station and things, and how much agency does she really have to share a lot with Rhaenyra and speak up? So she seems like a very timid character to begin with and not a very forthcoming one. But I think, there is a very it's a conflict that's just ultimately waiting to be sown no matter what, because they're both women, but one of them is in a lot more of a power position, has a lot more autonomy than the other. And the way I read it was Alicent being a little jealous that Rhaenyra's got that freedom to take matters into her own hands a little bit, and not that they're trying to make it a catty thing, but just that inherent jealousy of, I wish I had the freedom to be with someone that I was choosing to be with, and not I've been assigned to this old guy. So let me spread cheeks for him whenever he beckon calls me in the middle of the night to his room.
Yep. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. But I guess I come down on it harsher.
I see both sides. I mean, we could do a whole episode about all of this, right? Like the Kristen Cole thing and Rhaenyra, and that probably would be a really interesting thing to dissect for a lot longer time.
Yeah.
We don't have time. Great segue, Hannah. So, you guys want to cover anything else that happened in this episode? Any final thoughts? Anything?
Did we cover
Mira's dress
Valeris?
wasn't black. Sorry, I had to nitpick that.
It still might happen. Like, she could have her own dress moment in a later episode where she's like, aha.
That's true.
According to the books, this does come later. I think they just fast forwarded the dressing, the green dressing a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's good because it gives the actress kind of a moment on the way out too, right?
So are they gonna do it? Is the question I'm having.
Oh, I think they'll do it. Yeah.
They absolutely will do it.
Maybe they were just waiting to give that a bigger moment, right?
Yeah, maybe it's the. Are we getting another tourney?
Well, so there was this tourney of like the marriage tourney. My thought is that they combined it because they did the Alicent dress thing, but maybe I'm wrong because, like, if I recall correctly, there were the wedding celebrations for Rhaenyra and Laenor, but also the dress thing was at a different tourney for Viserys and Alicent's 5-year anniversary. So I thought they combined them, which is why I was a little like in the mood to nitpick. But
I was away for a bit. Did we talk about the Laris thing?
Insofar as
Tim talking to Alicent.
Yeah, like the first scene.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting. It felt very much like he's the Tyrion of the family, and he has to kind of make his own path, where Harwin gets to work in as the Jaime under his father.
Mm.
Yeah, back to the dress for a sec. It occurs to me that like Alicent is at war with Rhaenyra, but I think even when we end this episode, Rhaenyra doesn't know that she's at war with Alicent just yet.
Yeah, I almost like that, and I was thinking that myself of and to have her in the white was to show like the naivete. She doesn't understand the sort of snare she's really getting herself twisted up in.
I mean, it's also it's a visual shortcut for the audience. Like, this is her wedding; she is the bride. You know.
Yeah, I think that if she wore black to her wedding, it would have confused people.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
So I did want to say I absolutely did not really love the whole shotgun wedding thing at the end. I wasn't sure that was within the world and for the show the greatest thing. Although I'm not going to complain about it too much because I'm like, yes, let's move forward. But I really did love that final shot with the blood and the fire burning in its, reflection. And then the fucking rat comes up and starts. It was so graphic. And
should we start a rat count for the show?
Said though in that shot, like that just. I don't know. There's so much more than I can like describe that hit me with just that one little ending shot. It just blew my mind.
Well, it's rotten, right? Like that. I think they're doing such a good job of, not just with Viserys' like physical body falling apart, but like the presence of rats is obviously going to have plot significance. But it really, you get the sense of just like they're dead and they don't know it yet. They're being gnawed on. This is like there's vermin everywhere. And like this family has no idea. Viserys is like, for Laenor and Rhaenyra's son will definitely sit the Iron Throne, and like, what will people sing of in 100 years or 500 years? Like, dude, nobody's gonna remember you because there's gonna be a massive fucking civil war.
Yeah, no one is coming to help you. Everyone's gonna fuck everything up for you.
Well, and like for rich and high and mighty they are. and they're playing all these games of Thrones, they're still no better than the people down in Flea Bottom that have rats on their floor. Like it was such a like fuck you to the monarchy kind of thing for me in a sense as well. And I love what they're doing this whole season, which is the aesthetic of everything, the way the rooms look, the halls of the Red Keep. It really clearly sets up this idea that it's the same world, but they're not playing on the same level as what we see when the main series starts.
Hmm.
And it's an interesting thing to juxtapose those two things because they have a lot more aesthetically going on when we come into the first episode of Game of Thrones and we first see King's Landing. So they're richer and they're sort of better off in a lot of ways, but they're all blinded and kind of stupider in a lot of ways as well. And that leads to like a different kind of detriment for all of those characters. And these are playing with different pieces, but on the same board, kind of. Like, I really loved that last shot. As like gross as it was just like they mic dropped and got out of there. It was amazing.
I think it also makes sense to me that, like, that part of that image is Viserys collapsing, and like just the idea that, I mean, literally this reign is unstable, but I think it also ties in with like Alicent and Kristen Cole and like everybody just kind of like having the guardrails of their life kind of fall away, and the things that they rely on to make the world make sense are disappearing. And I don't know, I found that very powerful in like Viserys, very, very minimal attempts to kind of try and keep the world making sense is the one who's like falling all over the place and can't stand up straight.
Can I ask something real fast? Just an internal poll here. With the whole prophecy thing being added into this, how's that going to play out at the end of the dance? Is it the whole point is that it dies because Viserys is not there to pass it on to Aegon II?
I think that has to be where they go with it. And I will also say, I was going to say this earlier, is we had no prophecy talk really this episode. It was so nice.
There was none.
But yeah, I think that's where it's going to go, is the lost knowledge, right? The consequence of this is not just the fall of House Targaryen eventually. I mean, because they're still in power for a while, but
I'd
like,
really like to hear what George thinks about that. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not sure that we have. That's not canon.
It probably spoils future books. I think that like there's probably something that. Why am I?
Yeah, I
forgetting
mean,
names?
I'm not really caring about canon here as much, but I think you're right, and I do think that in like the World Book and in Fire and Blood, there is enough to kind of suggest that this is maybe what he was doing. And to some extent, they're obviously shining a much bigger light on all this and the dagger and all this stupid stuff. But it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, Aegon and the dreams and it being passed down some way.
I truly despise that idea.
None of this other stuff would have, because that's weird.
Well, I
for
mean,
me.
this is not late game. This is not late Game of Thrones TV show anymore, where George R. R. Martin has almost no stake whatsoever in that TV show. This is his name is plastered all over this whole thing. This is very much a thing that they make out to be a personal production of him. So,
even those last few seasons, he would talk about. They would say, "Is this like your story?" He'd go, "Oh, well, I told them about this," and he was always kind of playing along. And I even said at the time, I was like, "This just doesn't sound right," because like none of this adds up with what he's going to do. And he would drop a little bit of hints saying, "Well, they did change some stuff," and now he's straight up like, "Well, I met with them for a few days, like back in like season 3 or 4, or whatever, and they really didn't listen to a lot of the stuff I said." Like now he's just full on being like, "Yeah, the show was way off the rails." But
and then
I
not
think
to mention
he wasn't able to do that at the time. So
yeah, and then not to mention just them giving an actor a bigger role just because they like them, which is their prerogative to do as showrunners.
Yeah. Which they straight up. It's like I wonder if we'll ever get this. And this is like if we ever get the final book and we ever get his kind of thoughts on this, like his magnum opus, possibly, and they just like give it to another character because they thought it was cool. Like how does he feel about that?
Shadowbaby, to your question though, I think the whole idea of, like lost knowledge is, very central in fantasy as a genre, and I think it suits Martin's sense of romanticism to have that be something that is not overt, or while it's not overtly said in the text, is, something that's within bounds, I'd say.
And I also think it's stunning because we go from here where the Valyrians say, well, we have half of the dragons in the realm, right? 2 dragons. We're going to flash forward, and there's going to be probably at least a dozen, when the dance starts or close to it. I mean, like the power of the Valyrian blood in Westeros as like dragon riders that could be ready for this, Song of Ice and Fire, yada yada, whatever comes later. Like it hits its peak and then it just dies, which I kind of find interesting.
I think ultimately this prophecy don't as much as some of you may not like. I mean, I'm blasé about it and whatever about it. Some of you may not like it very much introduced in this way, but ultimately I feel like it fits. I don't think it's completely out of place. Like the stuff that was happening like late Game of Thrones, it just didn't fit. It didn't fit itself. It didn't fit the overall plot. Or it didn't fit anything that's going on in the book. It didn't make sense. This
Yeah, you about very
kind of
tiny thing.
this,
But
yeah.
what bothers me specifically about prophecy talk is if every episode they go the prophecy this, the prophecy that.
Sure,
That's
exactly.
too much. That's too much.
But they're
it's
not doing
annoying.
I
but
want
they're
it to
doesn't
fade
seem like
away.
doing this.
I want it to fade away.
Right. I like that they had it this episode of just like when Rhaenyra's talking to Cole on the ship about running away together, about about her saying like, no, this is my duty, this is my life. I like that there's the opportunity to read into, oh, how much is she thinking about the prophecy? But it doesn't have to be the entirety of the thing.
She could have pulled out the dagger and said, "Read this."
Right. One ring to rule them all.
That's right. Like, let's just not do that. Let's get away from that.
It's what makes this on such a landmark series within high fantasy is that it's not all mysticism and creatures and magics. There's elements that are sprinkled throughout it, but it's not the point, right? Like
it isn't. But I feel like I don't think this show is going to have a problem with that. I feel like the Game of Thrones, the Game of Thrones TV show had the problem of the opposite, that they feared anything that's too fantastical, and they cut away a bunch of those elements, and ended up, but in the end, producing an incomprehensible product. I feel like some of this is not that bad. A little bit of this.
Thank God bless you. You're putting that so mildly. A lot more gracious than I would be about it.
But I think part of the point of this whole enterprise is that, something that's very important in the books is that, like, the fact of knowing a prophecy is way more important than the actual prophecy. Yeah. And, like, it's a ghost that will affect everything that everyone does. And I think that they have set up very effectively. And I choose currently to see their reminders of it as just like a goad in that direction, as opposed to being like, the prophecy needs to come true and this is why we need, that's my personal read.
We know how the show is going to end. It's got nothing to do really with the prophecy in itself, but it's related to the general demise of the dragons, decline of the Targaryens, that whole stuff.
Yeah, thinking about it like that, it annoys me less. When he first takes her down to the skull of Valyrian and starts talking about, I thought it was just it's purely like, see, this show is like that other show you all liked. So
it's plenty of time for this show to go off the rails.
Right. Well, I think Shadowbaby,
right.
I don't know if this made it into other episodes or not, but like, like my general thing is, like, okay, well, it is winter during the actual dance, right? And it is but it also, just like ties it back to the main conflict of you guys are just playing your Game of Thrones and not paying attention to what could be the actual crisis that they don't know, because they don't know how bad the winter will be when it is, right? And they also, through that, remove their ability to actually combat it when it does come, even if it's not on their watch. That's their downfall. I don't know. And I think the best way to go about it going forward would just be to have that as another layer for why Rhaenyra wants the throne, right? She's, besides just the Iron Throne is mine by rights.
That's a good point. I like it.
All right.
Did anyone else catch on to the whole oranges thing with Kristen Cole and like, he's somewhat Dornish. It reminded me of the the whole R and L equals J thing with the
lemon trees don't grow in Bravos.
yeah that.
Yeah, look, we had the tree dig. in the
Two
Godsworth,
references?
so,
That's
like-
not a coincidence.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Coincidence? I think not.
Cue Preston
My neck.
Jacobs.
Standing up.
And that's how you know this is a George R. R. Martin production. Too many
All right.
food. Too much food. I mean, too much food
That's right.
reference.
Not a
when
single
he's cutting at the
potato.
bird. He's cutting at the bird, and it's like he's just going at it. It's whoa, Viserys, chill out.
Yeah,
It's dead.
Adventure on that table. Shut it down. Full redo.
All right, so we're halfway through this season, right?
Yeah,
This
I'm
is,
scared. 10 years.
This is
Get
10,
ready for 10
it's
years.
10 episodes. Yeah, so we were saying goodbye to several of the younger actors and actresses in the cast. We already have seen a couple of actors switched out, right? The next episode, episode 6, is called The Princess and the Queen, then Driftmark, Lord of the Tides, Green Council, Black Queen, etc. So, episode 9, I think we still are assuming, I think we said this earlier, that's probably when stuff kind of goes down, and then you get kind of 2 episodes of like setting up all of this, right, for a season 2. So that means we have 3 episodes to live with these characters where they will interact in some way before trying to kill each other. And with everything they've set up, do you guys feel that gives us enough time to kind of get to where we need to go? I think we're doing okay.
I think we're right along schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little concerned about some of the stuff, but now we have time to explore a lot of it. They kind of had to skip some stuff and move some stuff forward. And like, I mean, I think we joked that like maybe they're going to do a double wedding this week, and they almost did, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just very quickly, Damon's wife dead. Hey, who's this? And then we can just say, yeah, that all happened, right? It didn't even take that much time to kind of work that in there. So I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah, I think the pace will really pick up, and it will be exciting, not rushing through, is what I'm hoping.
I mean,
And
we're
then
gonna have,
let's-
I think, most of the babies born. At that
Right.
point, they'll be like
Yeah, all
actual
of them
children.
should be born.
We'll talk about this the previews for the next episode. I mean, we see
Yeah, there's like
the kids. The
Jace in the preview.
what is it that they talk about? I mean, she talks about how brazen it is that the 3 kids don't look anything like their father.
Clear that was strictly for the next episode and not like the next half of the season, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I think so, because they didn't show any of the like older kids.
Right.
They have
I
to,
wonder
they have to like get them born first, and then they have to like get them aged up in order to do the incident with Aemon's eye. So that's, like I say, that's the next episode is just like, like establishing Rhaenyra's strong babies, checking in on Damon and Lena, and next episode they kill off Lena and do the Vagar thing, probably, I guess.
Probably.
Yeah, episode 7's drift marks. That makes sense. Next episode, we're gonna get all the kids. We're gonna get the dragons being born and the eggs and lots of. I think the first 20 minutes is just gonna be introducing all of these new people, all these little teenagers running around and shit.
Right,
Just
having Viserys threaten to take people's tongues out.
Right.
Telling Jace, "This will be yours one day, grandson."
Everything the
Legitimate
light
grandson.
touches. Yeah. And then I'm looking here at like the poll up on the YouTube. We have, last I checked, there's 9 votes. 8 of them were 5s, and one of them was a 1. It looks like so.
Sounds like a troll.
Look, I mean, you remember we'd have the Bowl of Brown. You can only put 5 options on here for some reason, so I couldn't put more options for the poll. But there were always people that just every episode Bowl of Brown. I was like, I wonder if they even saw it. Yeah, but I just thought that was funny.
I guess my like one worry is that like with the last seasons of Thrones that I worry that like the last like few episodes are just going to be like shock after shock after shock, and I hope that's not like what we're going towards. But I'm still looking forward, and I'm excited to see the aged up cast, and sad to see the other cast members go. The person that played I'm terrible with names, but the person that played Rhaenyra was like
Millie Alcock.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I love the gal that plays the new Alicent, though. She's a great actress.
Oh yeah, I remember her from what was that movie called with the girl that killed the horse? It's a movie about like a person with no feelings and a person with feelings, and the person with feelings ends up being the bad guy.
I have not seen that one, but Olivia Cook has been in what was the one with the guy's deaf? Sound of Metal. She's good in that.
Yeah.
She's good. Yeah,
she's really good.
Thoroughbreds.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It was really good.
Not seen that. Okay. Yeah, and then the next 2 episodes I will say are they're directed by Miguel Sapochnik. That's how you pronounce that. Who is like he's the guy that left, I believe, right? But he was the showrunner for the first season, who isn't coming back. But he also directed several of the better episodes of Game of Thrones, I think. So it'll be interesting.
We'll find out. Tune in next week.
I'm just so happy that we got through a whole episode without talking about the architecture in Westeros. Really applaud us for that.
But we had to talk about the orgy tapestries.
Where are the aqueducts? So thank you guys for joining me, and we will be back next week with our thoughts on the episode, as we've been doing probably right after the episode airs, so it's kind of fresh. Shocking lack of knowledge. If we suck or forgot something or missed something, mention it on the Discord, put it in a comment. It's always fun. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Bye.
Thanks for letting me crash.
Bye.
Trees don't grow in Bravos. Okay, never mind.
Yes.
Yo, they're strong. What a bitch.
That gossipy bitch.
I love this. This is some hot gossip stuff.